Hey, welcome back to the Brew Nub channel. I'm Mike.
And I'm Joey.
And today we're doing something fun and exciting. We're going to do our first full grain batch of beer, which is going to end up being a light ale. So just watch us go through the steps and we'll see you then.
Okay, for today's episode, we have Satchel's Light Ale Brewing Kit, and it brings Irish moss, yeast, 2 packs of Sanitizer, 2 packs of Cascade hops, priming sugar, a cheesecloth, and your grains.
All right. Now let's go into showing you what tools you need to make the brew.
So for today's episode, we're going to need a mixing spoon, a funnel with a strainer, a thermometer, a pot that we're going to use for the mashing of the grains, and then we're going to also use a separate pot for the sparging of the grains.
And we'll also want to grab a little spray bottle for easy sanitation. We'll have our hop spider, our 1 gallon carboy with assembly blow-off, and a mason jar for the assembly blow-off, a bung, a little cap for when we do the yeast shaking, and then your airlock. Alright, so one more thing that you'll need is 2 gallons of water, since we're doing a 1 gallon batch, and then we'll also need some ice for when we do the ice bath, so make sure you have both of those. Alright, so we finished sanitizing everything. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take a gallon of water, put it into the pot, and get it up to 155 degrees before we start doing the mashing. So Joey, do you want to start pouring that in?
Sure can.
Alright, so now that we got our water up to that 155, we're going to start the mashing process, which will first cut open our grains. So Joey, if you want to get that ready.
Look at that. Yeah.
We'll tie this up, and then we'll slide this over. Drop this in. Give it a couple ups and downs so that we're making sure that we're getting all the grains. So what we're going to want to do is, as this is here, we're going to want to keep it at 155 for an hour and check every 10 minutes to make sure that it hits that temperature. And the purpose of this is making sure that we're extracting all the sugars from the grains.
All right, so right now we're in the 40-minute mark, and right now what we're going to do in a separate pot is we're going to put a half gallon of water in here, and we're going to reach this up to 170 degrees for the next process, which is the mashing out process.
So then this will have an extra 20 minutes. So once we get there, we'll show you the next process. All right, so we've hit that hour mark and we're ready to start doing our mashing out. So our second pot has hit 170 degrees. So we're going to pull this off the burner and put a lid on it to make sure that it keeps its temperature. And then we're going to take our grain pot, place it back on, and we're going to turn up the heat just a bit and get this up to 170 degrees.
All right, so now we're going to start the sparging process. So both our pots are at 170 degrees. And so we're going to grab our strainer here,
which we've already sanitized.
Yeah, and we're going to put this here.
There we go.
All right, and then to get the extra sugars, we're going to pour this pot right in there. Yep.
Then we're going to just let it drain a little bit.
Oh.
And now we're going to mix this around for about a minute.
Yeah, I want to smell it too. It smells good. Okay, so now that we have our wort at the temperature of 212, we're going to boil this for 1 hour, and we're going to put our first batch of hops.
So I've sanitized the hop spider.
All right.
So at the 45-minute mark, we're going to add our Irish moss. And then after the end of the boil, we'll add our last set of hops. All right, so we finally hit the 45-minute mark within that hour timer. So the next step we're going to do is take this Irish moss, throw it in, which is going to end up making your beer more clear. So we'll cut that off and easily just drop it in. So I didn't throw it in the hop spider so it could hit all the beer. And we have about 15 minutes left until we finish that hour boil.
All right, so now that it's been 1 hour, we're going to put our second hops in there, and then we're going to start the process of whirlpooling. Put those in there. And we're going to stir this for 1 minute.
So now that we finished that, we're going to go start the ice bath.
Okay, so now that we're starting our ice bath, we want this down to 75 degrees. And the reason we want it up to that temperature is because we do not want to kill the yeast.
All right, so we cooled our wort down to 75 degrees. So the next step we want to do, we want to grab our funnel and strainer and make sure to sanitize everything, because now that the wort has cooled down, you don't want to contaminate it. Spray this guy. Clean off the top that we'll be using. And start pouring that guy in.
Okay. Ready?
Yep. Let's do this. So as you can see, this didn't fill up to the 1 gallon mark, so we're just going to use the rest of the water we had to get it to the top. So we have it at right about the line that we want it to go. And the last part that we want to do is add the yeast. After adding the yeast, we're going to shake this for 1 minute. That's going to allow aeration, which will then allow the yeast to multiply. Now you don't want to shake it for more than a minute because that might cause oxidation. All right, everybody, we're almost done here. So the final steps, we're going to take out the cap and start setting up the blow-off assembly. Now this is going to sit in a dark, cool room for 3 days with the blow-off assembly. So we're sanitizing this, and make sure that you sanitize all your gear. Since the wort has cooled down to 75 degrees, you do not want to infect the beer. So as we get that, we're also going to have the sanitizer in the mason jar to throw in our tubing there. Make sure to secure it, because as this starts getting active, it can potentially pull out your hose. So you just want to make sure it's not going to fall out. And then finally, after 3 days, you're going to go grab your airlock, fill this up to the fill line, and really replace the tubing with your airlock, which you then will wait 11 days, and you'll be able to bottle and cap. So if you want to see how that process is done, go check out our video here. All right, so you just finished your first full grain batch of beer. So I just want to say thank you for joining us on this journey, and we hope to see you next time. So please, before you go, make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Later.
See you guys.
I don't know. All right, ready? So now that the whirling pool